Welcome to the comeback season, where we have real conversations about fueling your body, rebuilding strength, and stepping back into the life you were meant to live. Whether you've been caring for kids, aging parents, or just lost sight of your own needs, we see you. And this is your season to rise. Hello, my name is Nicole McLeod with Healthy Mind, Healthy Body. I'm a mindset and fitness coach and the author of I Started on a Tuesday. I know what it feels like to lose yourself in the chaos and still hold on to the hope that something better is coming.
And I'm Christi Kelsey from Christi Counts Macros, nutrition and mindset coach and food freedom advocate. I've worked with lots of women who felt stuck, restricted, and unsure where to even begin. Together, we're bringing you honest conversations, healing truths, and real strategies to help you rise again, physically, mentally, and emotionally, whether you've hit rock bottom or you're just tired of putting yourself last. This space is for you because this is your comeback season and it starts right now. Welcome to the comeback season. I'm Christi, your host today, and today we have a guest, Caren Pascal. She is a best-selling author, speaker, and lifelong student of yoga and Vedanta philosophy. After losing her husband, she made a bold move from Detroit to the Colorado Rockies, where she transformed her deepest grief into a new season of creation and purpose. Through her books, courses, and retreats, including her latest work, From Midlife Crisis to Midlife Creation, Caren empowers others to reclaim their self-belief and embrace the extraordinary possibilities of midlife. Caren, welcome to the comeback season.
Thank you, Christy. So happy to be here.
I met Caren on a Facebook group, and her story intrigued me so much. And I thought, I want her on my podcast. Caren, why don't you give us an introduction and tell us how you got into what you're doing?
Well, I am an artist. I'm an introvert. I'm a creative person. And I was led to yoga years ago in high school, actually. I had anxiety. And my mom said, why don't you take a yoga class? And that led me inward. And I made a greater connection to myself that I hadn't ever experienced before. So that was sort of my awakening to spirituality, I would say, that inquiry into myself, into life, into the meaning, into who is Caren. And that took off. I mean, I just got on the path of self-discovery at a younger age, and it really helped me through, I would say, some mental challenges of anxiety, of depression, of scattered mind or ADHD, what all the fun labels.
Mhm.
But it really helped find some peace and calm. And later on, I started to understand that there's more than just the breathing and the postures. Like that's the gateway inside, but there's teachings to live by. There's this education or philosophy, these eternal values, these universal laws. And when I started to study those, I was so intrigued, but also kind of upset at the same time that these easy, practical principles of life were not embedded in anywhere that I had been exposed. And, I had great education, I had a great family. I was raised Jewish, so I went to Sunday school, but it really didn't seem like these teachings were taught anywhere. And so when I was educated on these values, it shifted my life so powerfully that I began to talk about them and wanted to deliver this message. And so I started to teach yoga, and that was really my thing. Like, how do I integrate this philosophy into the breath and the movement? And so I always had these life value themes,
Mhm.
you know, intertwined into the movement and breath. And that later on, I know I'm skipping a lot, but that kind of led its way for me building courses, mental training, spirituality, leading spiritual education, and then getting into coaching during the pandemic because my husband was sick, which of course we'll get into more of. But I had yoga studios and I had to close them down in the pandemic. And it was like, okay, what do I really want to do? My soul's purpose is to deliver this message with my personality, plus the power of self-belief that I was inspired by my husband. So it all kind of was this beautiful progression that led me to being more of a speaker. And then when he passed away, I started to take my artistry into writing and wrote some books, and then led me to make this big move to Colorado, which has always been my dream to live in the mountains. And I finally just was able to actually um, know the timing was right and just do it. So
Mhm.
now I'm here, and once I got here, I was like, there's an actual process for me getting here. There's five specific steps that I took, and I just started writing again. So I actually just launched my ebook from Midlife Crisis to Creation, and that's kind of where I am right now.
I love that. You just finished From Midlife Crisis to Midlife Creation, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and kind of the inspiration behind this book?
Yes, I said introverted, but I also kind of stayed small my whole life, always hiding behind my mom's like leg, hanging on to it,
Mhm.
and just wanted to be home all the time. And I'm still a homebody, but it was a safety net for me. And I really was trying to avoid any sort of conflict in the world. So owning a studio, a yoga studio, and a business was a big step and a big leap to really put myself out there. And it really toughened my skin. My husband helped me with this a lot, but he thought so big, it terrified me. I was always like, okay, you do that and I'll stay over here. But when he got sick, something really shifted in me. I kind of just got out of my own way, to be honest, to be of service to him. But also, I wanted to inspire him because he inspired me so much. So I kind of stepped into his shoes a little bit and I started to believe more in myself instead of depending on him to believe in me.
Mhm.
And once I found that power and I stepped into it and I, claimed it or reclaimed it because it's always there, that's when things really started to transform for me when um, I was able to care for him in such a powerful way and completely recreate my business.
Mhm.
And then once he passed away, I continued to recreate and reinvent and upgrade. And then I thought to myself, this environment, this isn't where my soul can really shine. This isn't where I can be in my home frequency, meaning that regulated, calm state and where my nervous system is regulated and
Mhm.
at full peace. And I felt that chaotic energy was affecting me negatively.
Mhm.
And so I knew that it was going to take a lot because of so many reasons, and I talk a little bit about it in the book. But I took one step at a time. And the first step was just making the decision to move
Mhm. Yeah.
and decide where do I want to go, put the house up for sale. So once I ended up getting here, I was looking back thinking, man, so many people want to make a move. So many people, especially after a loss or in midlife, and they feel stuck, and I get that feeling, but most of the stickiness is really just fear of the unknown and attachment to what we have. So I let go because I had so much mental training and self-development in my background. I was like, I want to walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Mhm.
And this is the perfect time. I have no kids. I have two dogs, and my husband's gone. I'm single. This is the time. It's not a time to wait any longer. And I did it. So I thought about how did I really make this happen? And how can I help someone else make this happen in maybe less time with some practical steps that are just so basic, and it doesn't mean that they're easy,
Mhm.
but there is a progression to get, from where I was to where I am now and into your creatorship. Even if you don't know all the answers, you have to start somewhere. So
Mhm.
I thought about, what was that first step? And it really was being in the inspiration of self-belief. I would
Mhm.
have never gotten here without having been married and proximity. It's not that you have to marry someone who has self-belief. It's just having proximity to someone who believes in themselves, because eventually that light will shine onto you and you will have a choice and be able to make a decision that the belief is within you.
Mhm.
But being around that example is so important and vital. So I was like, I need to start there. That's step one, and kind of explain that anyone can have that. Again, it doesn't have to be a marriage, it doesn't have to be living with someone. It could just be even an author or a podcast that, maybe your podcast is inspiring. You might be that for someone so they can tune in every day and just get that energy, get that inspiration. And that's what gives you the energy to actually, and the confidence
Mhm.
to make those bigger moves and not to give up, because there will be a lot that comes to the surface, so many impediments, and sometimes we just want to throw in the towel and say it isn't worth it. But we can navigate that when there's inspiration around us. So that's really how the book came to be, is I just broke it down and I knew I needed to write something shorter and more of a workbook so
Mhm.
that people could document all the things that are really important, especially gratitude along the way. So you can print out these workbook pages that I have. Actually, one of my clients printed it and put it on her fridge just as a reminder, because it's so important to kind of have that, I will say, sort of strategy for your creative, endeavor.
Yeah, I love that. I can only imagine what that was like for you, stepping into that unknown and making such a big move. I can relate to how you talked about your husband and how he was such an inspiration for you, because I'm married to someone who has a similar energy. And I noticed that I started thinking about myself differently just by being around him. And I think that really is important to surround yourself with people and things that give you that confidence and energy that you're talking about. So, Caren, can you take us through some of the steps that you discovered on this journey?
Yes. So it was almost as if I didn't know at the time,
Mhm.
but that's why I needed to write the book, because I'm like, wow, if I didn't do this, the next thing wouldn't have happened. And being around the power of self-belief was number one, because that shifted me so much into all the things that I just never even imagined. I didn't even ever thought about being an author, and then wrote a book and then wrote three more after. So, like the ripple effect of that, right?
Mhm.
But what happened was there was a lot of heavy weight from the clutter in my home. And during the pandemic, when my husband got sick, he had a big office and I had a big studio, yoga studio, and we both had to move those office spaces, studio spaces into our home.
Mhm.
So the garage and the basement were cluttered, were full of stuff. And it was overwhelming. So much of it was junk, but so much of it was also so heavy I couldn't lift it on my own.
Mhm.
And the universe granted me a gift. My pipe burst in the winter. And I watched this happen. And because I'm so aware, I knew that this was the beginning of moving things. And people came into my home and just started, moving things out. And that got me to move things and clear things. And it wasn't just that, it was every drawer, all the stuff,
Mhm.
going through his things, which was really hard. Um, Going through all of my things. So when people might think, oh, well, I'm clean and organized, open every drawer. How's your computer? What's going on in your phone? Are there 6 million photos that you don't need? And I learned this concept a long time ago, and it's called saucha in Sanskrit. It means purity or cleanliness,
Mm.
and it is one of the qualities on this path toward enlightenment of spirituality and growth and evolution. And what it's really about is if the anything outside of you, and I'm talking about even your car, right? There's so many spaces that we're not thinking about. If there's clutter anywhere on the outside, that affects your mind.
Mhm.
You can't clear your mind if the surroundings are cluttered. And that might even mean people in your life as well that sort of take up too much space or are unhealthy. We need to even set boundaries and not like get rid of them, but again, clear that energy field
Mhm.
and remove what's not needed and simplify. So that took a very long time. It was definitely a process, but I would have never been able to then have the clarity of where I want to move and what I want to do next with my business, how I wanted to really focus on speaking. Like all that came clear to me after I was, I externally completely decluttered.
Mhm.
So it really has to do with outside first, then you can actually clear the mind. So that was sort of step two. So the inspiration and, decluttering are the first two main steps, I will say.
Yeah, and as you're speaking, I can feel, I'm imagining in my mind a basement and a house full of clutter, and then knowing that you're moving across country. You probably didn't know it at the time when you had accumulated all that stuff, but just imagine how that would anchor you if if you wanted to move and you had all that stuff in your house. It's like, what do I do with all of this stuff? And it keeps you there,
It does.
keeps you
It
in
does.
that space. And then if you can just let it go, then it's easy. Or I don't want to say that your move was easy, but it's much easier to move from that space to another space and start over when you don't have to bring all that stuff with you.
Well, that was the thing too. And I realized that the stuff had stuff attached to it. The stuff had so many, and I'm not saying memories are bad, but it was full of a life that I had already lived.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't need to take that with me because that would have weighed me down. And I moved here with only this. I didn't even take a U-Haul. I didn't want to because I would have put too much stuff in it that
Yeah.
I didn't need. So I was like, only what I can fit in my car and on top of my car, and the rest I don't need. I am starting fresh. It was very important for me to simplify
Mhm.
and be light as I can because over the years, especially in midlife, we accumulate so much. Again, I'll just call it stuff and
Mhm.
things that we really don't need. And that you said it exactly. It anchors us not in a good way. It keeps us where we are, it keeps us stuck.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get rid of things. It really is. It was not like overnight. This was a slow process. First, that flood came and I got rid of all my studio stuff.
Mhm.
And then I started to go into the garage and one thing at a time. And also, the people who came to my house, I paid them more and I said, can you help me move these things to the curb? Can
Mhm.
you put these things in the truck? So it was, it was a co-creation. I didn't do it. I couldn't have done it alone. And that's one of the things I mentioned in the book is to ask for help and to sort of make it a celebration and to do one thing at a time to tackle, okay, I'm going to do this room or I'm going to focus on just this big furniture, whatever it was. It is really a process. We gather so much, it does keep us where we are. It keeps us stuck. And so even if you're not going to move across the country, just to move yourself in a relationship or a career or whatever the dream is or the goal, you still need to declutter your life.
Yeah.
And so that's why I really wanted to talk about that second step in terms of having mental clarity.
So when it's one thing to, take a dresser out to the curb or whatever that you don't have any attachment to, or it's damaged or you're replacing, but what about the things that have emotional attachment or memories that come along with them? How are you able to let those things go?
One at a time. And I didn't decide to, I noticed and honored my energy, meaning when my husband died, it took 5 years to get to this place,
Mm.
to be able to let go. And in those 5 years, I had slowly started to give some things to his family that they would want. That was like one part of it for me. And I also sat with the things. I
Mm.
sat with the things and I let myself feel and I let myself heal. I didn't just like throw it out.
Mm.
I went through everything too because he had so many journals and so many books, and I didn't get rid of everything. I kept some things that were valuable for me and that were meaningful and symbolic. And I
Mhm.
didn't bring all of them with me. I stored some of this stuff in my mom's basement. She allowed me to keep some things there. So it's not like because if you do the whole like I'm just getting rid of everything, um, that may be too much and too fast. And then you'll suffer because you can't get it back. So I did it in increments over the 5 years, and I kept certain things that were smaller,
Mhm.
that were reminded me of him and that I always will value. So I would recommend it as a process, but it was very healing for me. And I knew that keeping it all wasn't healthy and it wasn't allowing me to not just make a move to Colorado, but also move forward in terms of opening up to a new relationship and a soulmate. And
Mhm.
I was ready to do that.
Mhm. Yeah. So, how long have you been in your new community?
It's been, I think, about 7 months. I moved at the end of March,
Mhm.
and I really took a sacred pause because moving was so chaotic and so emotional. And that's sort of the third step that I talk about, which is aligning with your soul and soul care.
Mhm.
I I had to slow down and work was not essential and it wasn't a priority. It
Mhm.
was me coming into my home frequency and getting acclimated to a whole new life at 47. Oh, I did not know a soul here. I had never even been to Breckenridge. I had been all over Colorado, but not in this area. So this was a brand new place, environment, community, people, climate, everything was new. I left everything and just for a restart. So I took a lot of time, many months, to just allow myself to be with it and
Mhm.
not pressure and push myself for anything else. It's one of the reasons why I rented so that I moved into a fully furnished home. I didn't have to think about buying a house because I didn't even know where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
So this gives me a lot of wiggle room to move around, to find some freedom and really get to know where I want to be. And I think that renting is a beautiful thing at this point in my life.
Mhm.
Again, because I don't have to own anything and be responsible in that way, which
Mhm.
I did when my husband died in that house. That
Mhm.
took a toll on me. And so I recognize that. I'm like, okay, this is a new phase. And if I ever feel that inspiration to buy a house or I know I really want to live in one spot, great. But so far it's just three different, I'm moving again in a few days to a third rental. And it's actually really fun to like live in some different spots and I find different trails and I'm meeting different people and I'm finally starting to, I did this naturally. I did not try to go out and meet a bunch of people. I'm not even that kind of person anyways. I just randomly got a massage like a month ago, and the masseuse turned out to be this amazing woman that I am now best friends with. And I haven't had a best friend in a very long time that was on a energetic aligned, in spirituality and growth. And so this bond and this friendship has been truly invigorating for me. And now we're doing things. I have the energy. I'm not a hermit anymore. And even though it's winter, I'm starting to be out and about a lot more in town, doing different activities. I'm ready to get skiing. That's why I moved here so I could ski. So I did not just try to jump in and create a whole new life immediately.
Mhm.
I just knew that it was going to unfold on its own, and I really recommend that for people if you're stepping into a new chapter. It doesn't have to be fast. In fact, when we try to speed things up, we sort of create this energy of stress. And
Mhm.
that's never good for our nervous system or creating.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty sacred, and this unfolding has been really, really powerful.
I love this. I love this so much because I'm sitting here thinking of all the different types of people who might hear this podcast, and not all of them are losing a spouse. Not all of them are, leaving everything they have behind and moving across country. But we all have times in our life where we have a little bit of a shift, and just taking that time to just pause, like you said. I love how you called it a sacred pause, and just listen to life and listen to what it's speaking to you and how it can bring you the things that you really need. I'm sure, the pandemic was stressful. Your husband's illness was stressful. And then losing him, that must have been heartbreaking. And your flood and all these things that create stress in your life. And you honored all of those things that you went through and just took that time to just be. And I love that so much, Caren.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I talk a lot about even in my book, there's no to-do list. It's a to-be list.
Mm,
And it's a big shift in thinking because most of, this culture is all about doing and
yeah.
multitasking and getting the things on the list checked off, and that feeling of reward and validation, but the list is never ending.
Mm,
There's never going to be nothing to do, or nothing on that. Like, you're never going to get to the end of the list and being like, I'm done. It's like, okay, now what else? Because there's so much more. Just flip the page. And
mm,
we get into this sort of frenzy, of doing versus being and focusing on becoming.
mhm,
And that I've really shifted into being. And when we're in that state, then we can go do the things.
mhm,
And there's a different energy when we do them.
mhm, mhm. So what's on the horizon for you, Caren?
Well, I don't know, to be honest. I just know that when I am in this state of being and in my soul frequency and listening in, right? Instead of running after and chasing things, that's when again I'm clear and I'm inspired and I'm creative. So creativity, you don't ever really know what's next. I love writing, so I'm always writing, but I'm speaking every day. And one thing I've taken up that I absolutely love is creating content. So I feel like I'm being of service and giving value every day by, creating a video and sharing it and being inspiring, being that power of self-belief in the world online. And that's been really beautiful to watch grow, and the engagement and just how impactful that ripple effect is.
Mhm,
So that is new, and I'm enjoying it so much, but I'm really opening up to speaking in as many ways as I can. So whatever opportunities may come of that, whether it's a podcast, whether it's um, a TED Talk or a different stage. I've spoken to nonprofits and I've been on different stages. I've spoken for so many years in sort of the yoga studio realm.
Mhm.
So now it's just, and in coaching, but I'm opening up to more of that impact. Like, how can what are the experiences that are expansive and that just kind of land in my lap from me showing up? So really what's on the horizon is I just show up for myself every single day in every way I can possibly do so. And I live my life to its absolute fullest. Priority is always soul care. It's always self-care. It's always how can I be vibrating in my highest frequency? Because that's going to make the greatest impact. My happiness, my health, my abundance. And that magnetizes whatever people, places, and things and opportunities come my way.
Mhm. Yeah, I was just thinking about back to the clutter discussion and thinking if you don't have that clutter in your life, then you have more possibilities. Do you
It's
find that?
yes, it's freedom. That's what I call it. It's I'm not tied down.
Hmm.
And that allows me to just live every day in the uncertainty, in the unknown, and just wake up in full gratitude and be like, okay, I never have a really set schedule. Like if I have a podcast, yes, there's something on there. Oh, but it's all of these wonderful, beautiful activities that I really, really enjoy. And I don't do more than one of those a day. If I have a coaching call, it's one. If it's a podcast, it's one. I don't do like calls and calls and calls. I mean, I used to do that or teach a bunch of yoga classes. If I teach a yoga class remote, because I still do, it's one class.
Hmm.
And I've earned that right, to
Yeah.
realize that is how I'm at my best. And I am always resourceful. I've always been trusting that money is flowing in unexpected and abundant ways. I have an abundant mindset, so there's no scarcity.
Hmm.
And I honestly don't know what's coming next, but that's how I know that I'm living consciously versus unconsciously or, subconsciously. And that's just really wonderful to not be in that programming of who I used to be
Hmm.
and be in this new, fresh field. And I know that if I can do it, I'm not like some special person. I think everybody can do it. And that's why I wrote the book, because I think it's just practical for people. And I want to inspire them like, no matter who you are, where you are, what's going on, you might not. I also share this in my book, so I'll give it to you. You might not know how, where, or when. And that's where we get stuck. Well, how am I going to do this? Where
Hmm.
am I going to go? And what's the timing? The universe takes care of that. Our job is just to understand what it is that we truly want and who we want to be surrounded by, who we want to do it with, what kind of people and environment,
Hmm.
and then why. We need to know why we're doing whatever it is we're doing. Because if we don't know that why, we don't have the motivation for it.
Yeah.
So it's just those three questions. You just need to know what, you need to know who, and you need to know why. And again, it's in my book, it's all written down. I really condensed everything because in my first book, The Power of Self-Belief, it's the full story of like me and my husband, and there's a lot of teachings and it's beautiful, but it's not as practical. Like this book is short, it's sweet, and it's a little bit more of a strategy for how you can move yourself into creation from any sort of crisis.
Yeah, that's great. So, um, if our listeners want to find your book, where would they find that?
Well, I've put everything on my website to make it easy, CarenPascal.com, and it's in the navigation, you'll see that ebook and you just press it and you can get it from my website.
Okay, that's great. I think that would be really a really great process for all of us to go through and to think about those things that you said, the how, the who, and the why. Is that what you said?
The what? I know this is my clients would always do the same thing and they'd be like, wait, is it because there's a lot of them, right? So what do you want? who do you want to do it with and why? So what, who, and why are you have to decide that and really think about it. And then where, when, and how, don't worry about that because it will all come into play in its own mysterious way. But when we try to figure that out and we need to know that, that's where we'll get stuck again and we won't be able to move.
Sage advice. That's great. Well, anything else you want to touch on before we close up today, Caren?
Well, just to say that anything's possible. You really, believing in yourself, and if you don't, be around someone who believes and them, but also believes in you. And we only have this one life that we know of, and you might as well make the best of it. Losing my husband made me realize that because he died at 30, and it was like, oh my God, tomorrow's not guaranteed. We hear this a lot, but really reflect on that. Like, what are you going to do with today and to make yourself feel really good about your life?
Yeah, I love that. Well, thanks for joining us today, Caren. I'm excited to get this podcast out there and share it with other women who are having a midlife transition.
Thank you so much. And it was really wonderful to be here and have this conversation.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us on the comeback season. Please remember, the conversations we share here are for informational and motivational purposes only. We are not licensed medical professionals, and this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, or replace guidance from your doctor or your healthcare provider. Always consult your healthcare team before making changes to your nutrition, your fitness, or your mental health routines. Your health and well-being comes first, and we want you to move forward safely with the right support for your journey.